what I was really excited about when I first learned about Imagine AI Live was the fact that this was a conference that was geared towards people. You didn't necessarily have to be technical. It was about people who have technical knowledge and have access to technical tools to help your business, to help your organization, to help you to amplify your impact, right? And so I really love that. I think that's what's really unique about what Imagine AI as a brand is all about, is making all of this accessible to everybody.
Welcome to the Imagine AI Live podcast. I'm your host, Chris Madden, and today we are honored to have Liz Ngonzi, a pioneering strategist and the founder of the Social Impact Institute. With over 20 years in leadership in fighting for the social good, she's a globally recognized speaker, award-winning educator at NYU, and a trailblazer in AI-powered digital storytelling and personal branding. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you, Chris. And I'm so excited to be part of the Imagine AI, kind of community. It's so extraordinary what you guys have developed here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Liz. You're a founding member here, at our inaugural conference at Imagine AI Live in Vegas, it's crazy. It feels like a while ago. It was only 6 weeks ago.
It definitely does. I'm like, wait, really? It's been 6 weeks. It feels like it was like last year in a way, right? Because of the pace at which things are happening.
It's incredible. And I want to start off by talking about ChatGPT 4.0 that was just released on Monday. And I don't know if you've had the chance to play around with it yet, but what caught my attention right away was the translation feature. And I sat down, my wife is South Korean, and let's try this out, babe. And it was amazing. It was a quick response time. I just would speak English, reply back what I said in Korean. She used to speak Korean, replies back in English to me. It's a pretty natural conversation. And it also gets the intonation and right as well. And just that they released this, and to think where this will be 6 months from now, a year from now, et cetera. It's incredible. Have you had a chance to play with it yet?
Very, very lightly. I actually was wondering why it was rendering very slow. Like I was trying to get an answer to something and I'm like, wait, why does it take so long? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, you've been upgraded. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what just happened. So I haven't. But here's what I'm going to say to you in terms of what you just shared that I think is so important, because, I work globally, is that I think up until this point, in so many ways, in terms of education, in terms of like just way people transact, we've been living in basically in an English speaking world, right? And so what I love about AI in general, and then what you just shared with me specifically, is the fact that now all of a sudden we've leveled the playing field for so many more people to become part of this, to be able to create their ideas, to be able to engage professionally. And so I think that's really, really important. And I'll give you an example. About 3 years ago, I developed a training program for 10 young leaders from across the globe, 3 of whom spoke. So we had English speakers, we had Portuguese speakers, French, and Spanish. And we delivered it over 12 weeks over Zoom. And we had to hire interpreters, and we had to have someone translate all my materials into the different languages. And it was kind of clunky to do it. And now when I think about what the technology that's now available to be able to do all of this in real time and to be able to go back and forth, right? And even like when we talk about HeyGen or any of these other applications that literally I can be recording in any language, right? So then that means that my content, what I'm teaching people, is accessible to them in whatever language they need it to be accessible. And so I think that is super game changing. And so the accessibility part of this is so exciting to me.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to touch a little bit on your background before getting into more specific questions. So you worked at Digital Equipment Corporation.
Yes, I'm a dinosaur.
Yeah, that was like your first big job, right?
Yeah.
And how did you get into New York University and start teaching there?
Oh, God. Okay. So we're talking about a lot of time in between the two things.
Okay.
So my first degree is in information systems from a long time ago. And I go in to go work for Digital Equipment Corporation in their what they call the marketing development program. So we were 16 people who were recruited to be part of this rotational program. And I worked in various aspects of marketing within this company. So corporate communications, competitive sales, and the like. And then I worked for a smaller company called Microsystems that focuses on the hospitality industry. And I sold point of sale systems and related technologies to the hospitality industry. And then I was a management consultant. So this was around when, everything was coming online, right? And we were talking about Y2K. A lot of organizations were really starting to think about, okay, how do we integrate this technology into the way that we're doing business? And that's where we went through the .com bubble, and then the bust burst, right? The bubbles burst. And I decided at that point that I no longer wanted to work in corporate America and I wanted to be on my own. And so I started my own consulting firm, and I felt that I wanted to take what I'd learned in marketing and in sales and the technology space and integrate it into helping nonprofit organizations and social impact organizations to tell their stories more effectively online. That was really that simple. Did that for a while. And then in 2009, we went through the economic downturn where literally my consulting firm, we lost 60% of our business overnight because of all of we were diversified. So it wasn't even like it was because we had one client. It's that we were so affected by what happened with Madoff. So a lot of the organizations we were connected to were connected to that. So at that point, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, all the budgets that these organizations have previously had are going to be cut, right? So we used to do like $1 million galas and that kind of thing. And I said, okay, what's the way that we need to think about helping organizations move forward? And that was really when social media was coming online. I was like, all right, let's tap into social media. We've already been doing event websites from a long time ago. We were doing online auctions and things like that to help organizations. So I said, you know what, I'm going to write to NYU. I took a course at NYU, and I wrote to the director of the Hyman Center for Philanthropy and Fundraising. I said, you have a hole in your curriculum. You're teaching fundraisers about fundraising, but you're not showing them how they can leverage online, right? The online, which we now refer to as digital platforms, to be able to do so. And I said, I'd like to create a course for you. So she's like, okay, come in, do a demo. I did a demo, and she hired me. And so that's how I ended up at NYU in 2009. And I've developed a lot of different courses related to how organizations could leverage. We started off with social media. At the time, it was like, okay, look, if you're a small nonprofit organization, you can't afford to build a website, right? At least get a Facebook page, because at least you have a digital presence. The whole point is, if you have a digital presence, you go from only being visible to maybe the people within your community to support you, to now having an online presence. So someone who's like across the globe can find you and then, potentially support the work that you're doing. And so that was really the lens through which I was looking at all of this. So when we fast forward to when I learned about ChatGPT from an intern and I had COVID, so I was home, stuck at home, and I started playing with it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just the next level of what we can integrate into what we're already teaching, right? Through the Institute at NYU, because I was already teaching organizations how to really leverage digital platforms. I was teaching them how to create digital strategies. And then I was like, well, if I now integrate the tools, these AI tools, into helping them, one, they can create their SWOT analysis like that. They can do their SMART goals like that, right? It sort of fast tracks their process. But then when we also start talking about developing content, right, to engage their stakeholders, whether it's marketing content or if it's proposals and the like, this could definitely help them, to enhance whatever it is that they're creating and to be a lot more targeted in doing so. And so that's really where I started out, playing with ChatGPT and then eventually Claude and all these other tools. And I just feel like this is obviously just the beginning of it. And I've since kind of explored it in different ways, but it's really quite extraordinary in terms of leveling the playing field for organizations. Specifically for individuals, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's all about just telling a story, whether you're an organization or an individual. And an individual, a lot of times, you have like this resume, or trying to apply for a job, or even as someone who's, I coach small business leaders. The most important thing is to have a very strong personal brand, right? Because that then attaches to the brand that you're building as a business or a nonprofit or whatever it may be. And so I saw this as a tool that they could use, like something as basic as, sort of optimizing their LinkedIn profiles, right? But then coming up with a narrative that then could translate into how they communicate social media posts, how they come across on various platforms, if they have opportunities to speak, like when I had an opportunity to speak at Imagine AI Live, being able to create a deck and being able to create a presence to get people to your talk that was really consistent with whatever that core message you wanted to put out there. And all these tools really help with that. And so that's kind of where I am with all this. I love it. I think that I really want as many people as possible to take advantage of all of this, because I think, having been in sort of seeing technology evolving over the last 20 plus years, what I found is that, of course, people get afraid of it. There's a lot of, there are all these things, there's scams and da-da-da-da. Okay, sure, there are. But the reality is this isn't going away. And so I feel like every month people wait to start learning this. It's almost like a year, right, in the past, meaning that the pace of change is so swift that you can't afford not to get on board already.
Yeah, I think you said it really well there. And it's like waiting a year, but it's more the lost opportunity of where you could be if you start paying attention now versus a month from now, just because you can do so much more. And that stuff compounds and builds if you keep building at it, working at it.
Exactly. I agree with you on that. And I think that it also helps solopreneurs, it helps smaller organizations that just can't afford to hire people to do the different tasks for them, right? Now, all of a sudden, you have this like sort of virtual team that can assist you and really make you a lot more productive and a lot more effective in what you're doing. And then that doesn't even touch on like the, innovation, right? That then you can innovate from there. And I think it's pretty cool.
Where does your like passion for this come from, for helping people and social impact, and like why you've focused on this and started the Social Impact Institute?
It's in my DNA. So I grew up in a United Nations family. My mother was a diplomat, and I went to United Nations International School for 13 years. So I literally,
wow.
So when I decided to go to work in corporate America, everyone's like, what? Yeah, so I grew up in that environment. When I graduated high school, I graduated from the General Assembly of the United Nations, right? I grew up around people from all over the world. I spoke French from when I was 6, Spanish when I was in high school. So it was kind of like already part of who I was. And I think that the time I spent in corporate America was really good in terms of developing my skill set, helping me understand business and helping me to develop my network. But my passion and my interest really came from the foundational experiences I had as a child.
So that's amazing. As somebody that I've lived in 5 countries teaching English and have visited 60 countries now. And I just love that, all that you can learn from different cultures and different peoples. Were your parents diplomats?
My mother was a diplomat. I was born in Uganda, and we moved here when I was 4. So my mother came to work at the Uganda mission to the United Nations. And then we eventually stayed, and she worked for United Nations Development Program, which is the UN's development agency. And she was a number 2 person in communications for that agency, and so traveled all over the world. But what was fortunate for me is that I got to stay here. She traveled away. I got to stay here at this school, so I had that stability, which is very unusual in New York, which is unusual for a lot of the people I went to school with, because you'd have literally kids come in for 3 months and leave. Like, it was because their parents' jobs were, constantly moving them. And so what I just did was I was able to just travel to visit people in their respective countries.
That's incredible. I didn't know you were from Uganda. My first trip to Africa, I was 20, and I did a mission trip with a church I was involved with, and helped build a school in the south of Uganda near the border with Rwanda.
Rwanda. Okay. I'm from the west, so a little bit further, Portal and Mbarara. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, I just so impressed at how happy people were, and it was just so welcoming. It was so different for me coming from America, and then materialistically, they really didn't have much, but they were so happy, singing and dancing, and so generous too with the things that they did have, and really was an eye-opening experience for me.
Yeah, and the area where you were is very challenging. So the fact that you experienced that, and actually beyond just talking about the social impact part of this, so that's my mother. Of course, my mother was a comms person, right? So that's storytelling. The other part of what I do is storytelling, right? That's the core of who I am, and that comes from my father, the late Dr. John Ruganda, who was Uganda's most well-known playwright. And so a lot of schools in East Africa and the Caribbean, even here in African American studies programs and universities, they teach his plays. So I kind of think I just became my parents, a combination of my parents, because fundamentally what I do is help organizations, companies, and individuals to tell their stories more effectively, right? And I leverage the various tools and strategies to help them do so. I always try to help people understand, because I'm speaking to people who are not necessarily that technical. I'm like, these are just tools. Don't get afraid. Just understand these are tools that can help you to ultimately tell the story, to help you connect with the stakeholders you need to connect with to amplify your impact. That's really what this is. That's what I'm doing.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, I want to check out your dad's plays after this and do a little bit more research. That's really cool. Well, that kind of ties into my next question I have. You've successfully integrated AI into the nonprofit sector. Can you discuss a specific example where AI significantly transformed a nonprofit's operations or impact?
Sure. So the Court of Master Sommeliers is an organization that's based here in the U.S. Court of Master Sommeliers Americas. I sit on their board. This is an organization that's been around for 40 years and is the one that basically basically is responsible for the 160 or so master sommeliers out of the US, and then people who are interested in wine education and certifications in that space. When they recruited me, one of the things they were looking at is how they could kind of tell their story more effectively, how they could connect with folks more effectively. And I joined the board in April of last year. And one of the things that I immediately looked at was, okay, what is it that you're trying to do? And one of the challenges they had was they wanted to be able to teach their courses, right, in person in Japan. And other countries, but their instructors are in American and they don't speak Japanese. And what they felt was that they didn't want to penalize Japanese. Let's say your command of English is not that great. They didn't want to penalize you because of that. And so they were trying to find a way to be able to deliver the training, get you through the certification effective way as possible. So they're thinking, can we use translators? Like, how do we do this? And I'm like, no, we can use AI. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. All we need to do, research and found a company called Wordly AI, and I know there are a lot of other applications out there that can do live translations into 90 different languages. And so we did a pilot at Cornell and my alma mater. We took a bunch of hospitality students and we put them in a computer lab, and we had one of the guys who teaches the courses to go ahead and deliver a 1-hour lecture, and we translated, and these students all speak other languages. And so we had Hindi, we had Japanese, we had Korean and the like, and we translated live, and we're able to kind of see how that worked. And based on that, we did another pilot. And then in February, we did our first course in Japan for these aspiring sommeliers, and it was really awesome. And so moving forward, we're going to be able to deliver that in other countries, right? And so that is very transformative for this organization in the sense that language now is no longer a barrier. Right. And so that even can apply to courses online and the like. So again, the accessibility factor is really, really tremendous with respect to just even something as simple as, we do a lot of meetings, right? Whether it's internally as a board and then the organization itself. And so one of the things that I think I had a call with them, and I had said, can we use my Read AI? I want to make sure that we can capture the notes on this call so I could just focus on the conversation. They're like, oh, what's that? I'm like, oh, it can take notes while we're having this call. And can summarize them and give you really great insights. And so that's something we're now integrating into the organization. So one, it helps us kind of remain connected when we're doing our meetings, but two, it also helps with record keeping, right? Because it's an organization that, we need to be able to keep the records of the meetings that we have and the minutes and the like. So that's a tangible way that we've been able to integrate it. And then of course we had a strategic planning meeting. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for it. So I had ChatGPT help me kind of analyze a bunch of the content to create the deck. And then while we were going through our one-day strat planning, literally when we worked on our SWOT analysis in different breakouts, I'd bring us back together, and then we had ChatGPT synthesize everything so that at the end of the day, we had our strat plan ready to give the larger board. So those are some of the ways that we've been able to integrate it.
The example of the translation with the sommelier organization and bringing it to the Japanese market, essentially, and thinking about before generative AI and ChatGPT, what that would have taken to do in human hour. I mean, you would need a translator, and it's probably up to 1,000 pages of documents or so, and lots of resources, and then that translator is going to take 100 hours maybe, and paying them $50 an hour, if they're
at least
to do it, make sure that there's no mistakes and things, and then. Yeah. So just the amount of time it saved that organization and cost, and then that frees up you guys to the sommelier group to work on other things to expand the brand.
The other thing I wanted to me that's also important is that the translator did have to know the context. And that's actually something we discovered in the first pilot we did. I remember there was a Japanese woman who was listening, and she's like, when the instructor was speaking about white wine, Wordly AI interpreted it as Caucasian wine. But then by the fourth time or so, it then got that it was white wine, right? And so, but that's context, right? Or the fact that there are multiple, even though he's lecturing in English, wine in multiple languages, right? So there are terms that are in lots of different languages. So even having that context. So you can't just have any translator do this, right? And so what's great is at Wordly AI, we were able to feed it the context. We gave it a bunch of different terms and things so that it was able to understand okay, this is what this sounds like in this context. So this is how we need to generate the answer. And so it's even that, right? So the accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, the open question is then what it's that translator's job, the opportunities for that translator decreases. And so it's like figuring out their new angle or, their new skill sets and how they're going to make money in this new economy. And a lot of people are kind of facing that issue. And it kind of brings me to the next area I want to talk about is like social media branding that, you're a specialist in. And so taking, for example, this I don't know, a translator, Japanese English translator, and how can they use AI to make a better digital presence on social media?
Well, so I think it all depends on how they want. So you have to start with why you're doing this. What is it you're trying to convey? Like, what is it about yourself? Like, are you trying to get those disappearing opportunities? Or are you trying to position yourself as someone who actually can partner with AI to train the AI for you, right? So for instance, the example I just gave you, with this organization we work with, we could have had someone come in and help with figuring out how to create the context that's necessary for Wordly to understand what it was we're doing, right? So there's a gap there, right? So that's an opportunity. So for someone to be able to position themselves as sort of like the AI kind of like
linguist, AI translator,
kind of thing. Because I think someone who is a translator, right, understands different contexts, right? So if you can apply that to a different context, then you can apply it that way, right? So it's not that Japanese may be the language that you're knowledge about, but you understand how to translate, right? So getting kind of understanding what that is about you. But I would say that I think that you definitely want to start with kind of having a very clear understanding of who you are and being able to communicate that in like your bio or whatever it is. And ChatGPT can help you with that. So that if there's specific opportunities that you're going for, then you can kind of feed them into ChatGPT or whatever it is that you use to be able to kind of say, okay, these are the types of opportunities I want. This is what my bio and my resume look like. How can you help me create a LinkedIn bio that really kind of speaks to these types of opportunities and demonstrates my strengths? But another hack that I think is important to show is that one thing you can do is you can actually download your LinkedIn profile into a PDF, and you can also take your resume, upload them into ChatGPT and ask it to analyze based on whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. And it can give you input in terms of, okay, this is what your about section should look like. This is what your headline should be like. This is the kind of image you should have for your background image. This is maybe the kind of profile photo you should take. So it can help you to even go through each section of your profile, tailor them to the particular opportunities that you want, right? Another thing they can do is also suggest to you like things like you want to highlight. Like if you've done any kind of projects or any kind of, like if you translate something live or if you have testimonials, you want to be able to highlight them in your profile, whether it's on your website or in your LinkedIn profile. There's a highlight section where people can visually see, because it's not good enough to just say I do. You need to be able to prove that you've done it, right? So you've got a recording or whatever it may be, and then having testimonials from your clients, successful the people who benefited from what you're doing. And so it's really about telling me, but showing me as well. All right. One of the things I did during COVID is I did like almost 30 LinkedIn lives. This is what as I was trying to build up the Institute. I really wanted to get my name out there, but it also, more importantly, I wanted to give nonprofit organizations kind of access to my network and access to my knowledge to help them to get through what was a really difficult period, as you can imagine. So just doing that really helped me to build an audience for what I was trying to accomplish in this new entity that I started. And so I think being able to using these digital platforms to even do live demos or even, participating in podcasts and things like that, you have to really put yourself out there, but you have to be really clear about why and what you're doing so that then you can determine, okay, which podcast do I want to say yes to? Which podcast do I want to produce myself? What content do I want to put out there? Who am I going to engage with? What are the things I'm going to get involved in? And so that you have a real consistent sort of story that you're putting out there, because the story is not just the text that you write. The story is the things that you participate in, the associations you're part of, the groups that you connect with, the way people engage with you on your, email and that right? That's all your story. So I think AI can help with that, right? So you have a consistency. So for instance, one of the things that I love about AI is that it can help me with emails, right? You and I both, I'm responding to emails all day long. And sometimes I remember having situations where it would take me a really long time to respond to some emails because I really had to think very clearly, very deeply deeply on things. But like with ChatGPT, Claude, wherever it may be I'm using, I can literally say, okay, here's the email I've got, and I want to respond in this way. I want to be diplomatic, but these are the points I want to cover. And it can at least give me a really good first draft and save me a ton of time and just kind of get me out of my head to be able to respond. And so I really find that, or sometimes I'll say, can you read this email and tell me what the tone is? Like, are you suspect, are you, do you, yeah. Cause like a couple of emails, I remember there was one email I was like, this person's throwing me under the bus, right? And it was like, so ChatGPT was like, it seems like this person's calling into question, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, I thought so, right? So even in that sense, as a coach, it can help with that. Which is quite extraordinary. But what's amazing is that if you kind of continue to communicate with it within specific threads, then it understands your tone and it can actually, you're able to indicate what the answer is or what good looks like. So it can help you even more effectively the more times that you use it. So I really love that because I used to get in my head and like, it'd sit in my inbox. And I'm like, I got to get this out and I just can't get it out.
Yeah, it's incredible, Liz. You just listed many actionable pieces of advice there. I'm going to take that one about the LinkedIn profile and downloading the PDF of my LinkedIn profile and uploading that as well as my resume and other things about myself and what I'm trying to accomplish. And it's not that you have to take verbatim what ChatGPT says, but it's great for getting ideas and getting a different perspective on what the angle should be and maybe challenge some assumptions that you had. Like you mentioned, like what are the goals that you're trying to accomplish, and it can help you accomplish those goals if you let it.
Exactly.
I think that you're touching on something that it's not just AI that people need to embrace, it's social media as well and having this online presence. And I still think that, even though that social media has been around for 20 years now, it's still underappreciated and it's still just the beginning of its importance. And it's this thing that it's a tool to use depending what you're doing in life and whatnot. But like you can interact with and affect only so many people in the real world without going on social media. But if you do what you're doing on social media as well, like your impact is global, potentially global.
And absolutely.
And accepting that, I try to help get people out of their head of being so scared to share and scared to it's just a representation of who you are. And you're in luck because you get to choose what that representation is.
And that's it, right? You get to own your narrative, right? Because the thing is, whether we like it or not, our content is out there, right? Like you're on the dark web. I get all these notifications, my emails and some, hack that, right? So your stuff is out there, right? And people are posting content out there, whether you're at an event or something and you show up in someone's photo album, they can find you're there. So what I love about this is it enables you to really be very intentional about how you want your story to be put out there to help you to attract the opportunities necessary to amplify your impact, whatever that impact is, right? So it's really about you being able to own that narrative, because I think that's what's so great about it. And, this is what big companies have been able to do all these years. And now all of us, all the small guys have the opportunity to do the same thing. And that's what's really extraordinary. So let me give you an example. I've been on LinkedIn since 2005. Okay. And truthfully, probably for the first 8 years, it was just like, I didn't even really think about it. I really wasn't that concerned about it. I just had it. And then I started really thinking much more about it because I was teaching about it, right? And so I needed to kind of figure out, I was teaching about all these different social media platforms. And what I think is great about LinkedIn is that, yeah, sure, you want to have a good LinkedIn profile, but it's not about just the profile. That's just the beginning point, right? The next point is being able to connect with people who are like-minded. So like, for instance, like if you participate in an event like Imagine AI Live, one of the things I did was once you guys listed all the different speakers who were there, I actually took all the bios within there and put them into ChatGPT, and I said, create a little intro I want to send a message to the different speakers, and I want you to tailor it to whatever it is they're speaking about, what I'm speaking about, so that there's some context. And that really helped me to connect with a lot of people very, very quickly. So that's where, so it helps with creating connections to people who are like-minded, right? The next thing that it does is it gives you an opportunity to create content, because really LinkedIn's a content site. That's really what they're pushing for, is for you to develop content so that it's not just about having a resume. It's about being able to now be a thought leader in whatever space you are, building that personal brand that you're trying to build, right? And so that your personal brand on LinkedIn translates into the way that your profile looks, the people you're connected to, and then the content that you're sharing, right? And so what happens is now when someone Googles you, for most people, that's the first thing that comes up is your LinkedIn profile. So if that's the first thing that comes up before your website or whatever else you've got going, you got to make sure that really speaks to who you are in terms of like the profile, in terms of content you're sharing to validate that this is the area that you're a thought leader in, and also the connections that you've got, demonstrating that you're part of a specific community. Even like the accounts that you follow, you like, like you can join groups or you can follow different companies and like, that's also part of the brand, right? That tells people what you're into. And also that's how the algorithm is able to suggest who should connect with you and the like. So it really does require some thought when you're looking at developing these profiles.
Right.
But it's really about that content sharing, right? And sharing your content, but also amplifying other people's content, right? Because it's a community. It's not just about you broadcasting all the time. It's about being able to connect. If Chris is sharing something, resharing it to your community, commenting on it and the like.
Well, so that makes me think of a question is like, how do you suggest time management with this and like how much focus people should spend once they have their profile set up and to their liking, like you're saying, just the engagement and creating content.
Yeah.
And for me, that's basically my job now is creating content and getting stuff out there. And I do it every day, try to, but that's not exactly reasonable for a lot of people. And I'm just wondering like your advice on that.
I think it's imperative, especially if you are a business owner or if you're a leader of something, like if you don't have a big team that's managing the brand of the company, a lot of people are going to engage with the brand of your small business, your nonprofit through you, right, as the leader of that thing. And so you actually do need to kind of prioritize this. And I'm not saying that you've got to write like a long form article every single day. I think it's just about being active. So here are the different ways you can be active on LinkedIn. One is they have what they call these collaborative articles, right? That they'll ask people to write. They'll say, okay, you are an expert in blah, 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 like, personal branding. Can you comment and contribute to this particular article? So that's one way, right? So that takes me like 5 minutes to answer something like that, to just add a comment on a particular topic that's related to what I do. The second thing that you can do is you can see a news article or something and just comment on it and share that with your network. You can then write your own article if you want, or you can comment on other people's. So there are lots of different ways that you can be engaged every single day without having to spend a ton of time. But I definitely feel that it's important for you to be out there, especially if you're trying to attract business, because it's a very cost-effective way to attract business and opportunities to what you're doing, right? And so that's what I would say. So it's something that I'm not saying you spend like all day on it, but I think at least, devote like 15 minutes to 30 minutes a day. And it also is a good way to research, right? Like just sit it, because like what I do is I read through my feed to see what's coming through, getting a sense for, oh, okay, these are some interesting things that are going on. I'll congratulate people, my network, because it's also about connecting with people, right? It's a way I'm connecting with different people in my network. So I'm like, hey, congrats on that, on whatever it is you've done. Or if someone's looking for a job, I'll post it to my network. If it's one of my former students, hey, this is an amazing young person. Can you see if there's an opportunity you can give to them? So it's just really about not looking at it as a task you have to do, but it's just a way that you communicate and you connect with your community.
Yeah. And you get used to, a CEO's main job is to say the pitch over and over again and be just as enthused the first time you say it as the 100th time you say it. And a lot of it's just sticking to the playbook, but then you kind of adapt your strategies and want to make a pitch for Twitter, X as well, because I do think that it's like LinkedIn is maybe the highest value of follower that you could have, but also Twitter. And it's a different beast. Since joining 4 years ago, I've learned so much and I've been connected into this like Silicon Valley tech ecosystem. I just feel like I have a pulse of like what is going on, the arena. And I only recently started like actually throwing my own voice and self into that. But I definitely recommend people to be on X too. And there's lots of different Twitters. There's lots of different circles that you can get involved in. But you set what the algorithm is going to be based on what you engage with. So just be careful what you engage with.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been on Twitter since 2009, and it's evolved quite a bit over the years. What I loved about it is I remember at some point realizing, like in the past, I used to get my news, like I would go on to like bbc.com or whatever website, media site. And then it turned to a point where I actually would go on Twitter to find my news, right? To find out what was going on. And then I found a community of people who were working in similar space all over the world. In fact, I'm going to give you a really great story. There's a guy who I started following on Twitter maybe in 2010, right? TMS Rouge. And he was really interested in a lot of things that I was doing that I was interested in as well, around sort of technology creating access for people on the African continent, right? That was something that he would post about. I found it really interesting. And so one day we used to like engage online. I'd be like, oh, I love this article, or, you know, I love what you're talking about. And then one day I just said, hey, why don't we just do, at the time it was like, let's do Skype, because that was like how long ago it was. So we did a Skype call. And during that Skype call, he's like, hey, I've got this blog. Do you want to write for this blog? I'm like, sure. So I wrote for the blog. Then he was like, well, South by Southwest is coming up in a few months, and the deadline's coming for people to submit ideas. Do you want to do something? I'm like, yeah. So we actually pitched Africa Tech and Women, and we had a session there. I hadn't met him. I never met him in person. So for a couple of years, I was engaging with him online. I literally met him in Austin when we went to do our panel, right? So it's Twitter that facilitated that. And I remember thinking, how incredible is it that this is a guy who lived in Dallas. I never would have found him any other way. We had very similar interests in the work that we were doing. I was able to contribute to his blog, and then we were able to co-curate this session. And we brought in people, other speakers from around the world to come and part of this. And then we literally physically met in Austin for the first time, you know, after that. So that's what I loved about it, is the ability to kind of make those sort of connections. And I even love X Spaces. I love going and like listening to what people are doing. And I think that's a really great way to learn. Just jump in quickly and get out. I don't have to really spend a ton of time. And I've been able to find a lot of really interesting folks in the tech space that, again, would never connected with, and learning about what they're doing. And a lot of them actually I learned about through Imagine AI Live. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great community. Great community we're building. And just a final thing on X. I mean, this is true on LinkedIn too, where it's like you make a good comment to a post, or you send a DM to somebody, you know, yeah, maybe this like CEO of a top company, it's one of the 1,000 things he gets a notification about, but maybe he does engage with you. Maybe you do get that intro and that door is opened, and possibilities and opportunities start to come your way. But you need to be on the sites to, you know, and start engaging to get the potential of that.
I agree 100%. I think that you definitely need to be on these sites. I mean, I've been pushing that for a very long time, because again, it's like in the past, people really focused on advertising, right, as the primary way of getting a message out there. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but being able to be a thought leader, right, and like in a kind of a soft sell where you're demonstrating who you are and the value that you have, and putting it out into a community that you're creating value for, that then makes it a lot easier for people to say yes about purchasing your products, your services, and engaging with you, right? And so that's what it does. And then you don't have to pay for that, right? I mean, you can do boosted posts, you can pay for that if you want to do that. But I think that, again, if we talk about being cost effective in terms of being able to reach your market, that's a really, really great way to do so.
Yeah, and it's organic and authentic, and that's what people want.
And that's it, because people are very cynical, right? So they definitely want that. I'm definitely excited about that. I like Instagram as well. For me, Instagram is more like I follow people who motivate me, my sort of like motivational quotes that help me, like if I'm having a low day or something like that, I kind of check in with that. And that's a kind of more of a fun site for me. But I think that there's definitely, like if you're engaging younger audiences, that's definitely a place you want to be. Of course, there's TikTok and stuff, but it all depends on the market you're connecting with. Believe it or not, Facebook is still something that's important for what we do, because as the International Social Impact Institute, we're working with people all over the world. And so like, you know, we were just analyzing our Facebook following, and we have quite a number of people in Bangladesh. The reason being that we had a conference where I interviewed Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel laureate, who's, you know, Bangladesh's most famous person. And so we got a lot of followers from there who are engaging with us from that. And then when we're dealing with people in the developing world, Facebook is definitely the platform a lot of them are on. Twitter, X, obviously, but definitely Facebook. So as much as it's not as popular in the US as it used to be, you definitely have people who are connected there. And then let's not forget all of these sort of the communications platforms like WhatsApp or Signal or all of these are other ways for you to get your message out there. In fact, I wrote an article in 2021 about how nonprofits could leverage WhatsApp for their not just digital storytelling, but also fundraising, because it's a very direct way to engage your supporters. And now they have the lists that you can set up so that if you're maybe in the field working on stuff, you can literally post and even do live video for your supporters to be able to kind of follow the journey and see what you're doing as an organization. And then if you've got any kind of promotions that are going, it's a lot more direct than email, trying to do blasts and things like that. So I love all these different ways that organizations can connect with their markets, but it's all a matter of understanding where are your supporters and then making sure you create a presence on those platforms. I don't think that you need to be on everywhere. I think you just need to find where your community is and then just be very relevant in that community. So if it's just one and you're a rock star in that, then that's great. You don't want to spread yourself too thin and do everything kind of halfway.
Right. That can be a mistake people make, is spreading themselves too thin and trying to do every social media platform. And it just becomes overwhelming and then you don't succeed anywhere. Where if you can find where is your audience, or you find the one place that is working and then you kind of double down on where it is working. I'm finding this social media conversation fascinating because, this has been my world for, I was always kind of posting on Facebook my travel stories and stuff and more personal blog. I did travel vlogs for a time and stuff. But then, I was really getting into podcasting, and I worked behind the scenes as an editor for 3 years, and now running this. And the power of short form video, that's the new trend. It's just going to get more and more important. And people listening to this full conversation between me and Liz, maybe 100 people, maybe, but we're going to be able to get these good segments out of there that we turn into 30-second, 1-minute clips and put on our social platforms. And then maybe with a good hook, it can be a hit, get 10,000 views or something, even more. And the game, it's a great way to get organic content is by jumping into these podcasts and recording your conversations and then using that. And there's AI tools you can use now, that several of them that will you upload the videos, the conversation, and it'll tell you, it has a virology meter and it can tell you what it thinks is the best one. And you really don't have to, and it'll put captions on there for you. You can get it done in 5 minutes. With me and my media agency, and we still do a lot of handcrafted stuff. I have an idea of what the prioritizing is and where to start a clip, where to end it, the copy and stuff. But AI is giving me suggestions for copy, for the description and all that. And it just streamlines so many things where I can get a piece of video content out every day and it doesn't take me too long. It can be an unlock for people, just CEOs, companies out there, nonprofits. Start recording these conversations you're having with people and just get used to putting yourself out there. Everyone's doing it. You don't have to worry, these talking heads, and and then you get used to presenting yourself and people get to know you and build your following that way.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I got to tell you, video, outside of someone actually engaging with you in person, video is the most powerful way for you to get your message out there as an individual and as an organization or business. And so it's very important to understand how that video game works, right? And how it works in terms of just what you're talking about, short form video. Also understanding the various tools that are out there, the platforms to help you, like LTX Studio is amazing, which I learned about through you guys. And I think that one of the challenges that smaller organizations and businesses have is not having the budgets to create these incredibly compelling videos that take hours. I mean, they take a long time to get shot and to be produced. But now all of a sudden, you have the ability to create a pretty compelling video using these various tools that you have out there, like you're talking about LTX Studio, but also I feel we've got platforms I love Canva. I think Canva is magic, okay? And Canva has Canva Magic Design. You've got HeyGen. You've got a lot of different platforms out there, but Canva really democratized creativity, right? It enabled anybody to be able to create an incredible presentation, incredible reel now, and using simple prompts to be able to do so using its AI tools. And so I think that what's great about it is now all of a sudden everyone can be a creator. Everyone can take, very basic content they've created and really make it quite compelling. So let me give you an example. One of the things that we're working on right now is taking the video of my talk at Imagine AI Live. That was 20 minutes or so, and turning that into clips, but then also turning some of that into quotables, right? That we'll have just quotes. So we're going to alternate between video clips and quotables that we'll put on, on the various platforms to kind of reuse that content. And then I'm going to give you where I learned this from Martha Stewart. So Martha Stewart living Omni Media through her company. What she always said is you can create once, right? So let's say if you have an idea for roses, right? So she might do a video segment on roses, but then they're going to do a video, then they'll translate that video into photos. So then there's photos for the magazine, and then they'll have an article about roses, right? So you create one and you use it in multiple ways. So even if you don't have a ton of things, but you've got like maybe one talk you've done, or maybe you have something you've generated, you can literally translate it into lots of different sort of media that you can push through your different platforms, right? And so it's not about having to always recreate stuff. It's about repurposing things that you've already created and using them in ways that are meaningful. So like on Instagram, it's very, very visual and very video heavy, right? And then LinkedIn, you can use images along with video, along with text. And then on X, you can, create little quotables and have like a thread going through that people can connect with. So it's just about understanding how to repurpose content that you've already generated, I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's basically what I make my living off on now is repurposing content. So, I mean, you think about this long form content, it'll be an hour long or something cut down. You'll be able to get 10 potential clips out of it. And then each of there's the transcript of it too. So you can work that into newsletters, into different social media posts. And it's just the possibilities there's so much. And then it comes down to a process of organizing, like the scheduling and prioritizing. That's basically the two important things is we get all this content, but then you have to get it out and do it in a organized way. Yeah, this is like bread and butter for me. I wonder where else you want to go with this conversation.
I wanted to give them a hack, just a quick hack. Going back to the videos, right? So any video that you've got, right, definitely always get the transcript, and you can upload the transcript into whatever AI you use, and it can help you to get those quotables really quickly. Right, so you don't have to spend a ton of time on that. So it can help
the quotables, and then so you're putting like the quote like in a cool graphic like square for
exactly.
Instagram or something.
Yeah. Exactly. So we're doing that. So that way it's, you're able to repurpose it in different ways, right? And so you've got the video clip, you've got the quotables, and then you can also write a blog post from that transcript as well, right? And so the blog post and then the social media for that blog post. So that's what I think is really cool, right? But I'm always like, get the transcript, always get the transcript, because that's the starting point for everything that you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, the next most important thing is the distribution of it. And so having the channels and the network to be able to distribute it. I mean, it's one thing, like we don't have a newsletter yet, and it's something that's been on the back burner for a while. And the sooner we get it started, the sooner it'll start to grow. And you can't just expect to put something out there, create a TikTok account. Actually on TikTok, that if you make a good enough video, it can go viral right away. But like other platforms, it's very, and especially on Twitter and stuff, like you're going to start tweeting into the void and you might get discouraged or whatever. But that's why the sooner you start, the better. And you just adapt your strategy and yeah.
Absolutely that. But that's the other thing about having a community. So if you have a community, if you have something you want to put out there that you need to get amplified, obviously you would have been amplifying someone before you ask them, but you could be like, hey Liz, I'm putting this out, can you please make a comment on it for me or whatever, right? So like use your community. In fact, you can do that through DMs or whatever to say, hey, I'm getting this out there, I'm trying to promote this particular thing, can you help it to grow for me? Or if you know them very well enough, you can actually tag them in the comments so they could amplify. So that's part of it, right? It's social. It's not you having to do the heavy lifting. Let your community also support you around this, but it means that you also have to support other people's content.
Yeah. Another point is that you have to think about the value that you're delivering with all of these clips that, I'm working with podcasts about limited partners, venture capital or something. And so it's like, who's the target audience, and like making sure that the clip is either educational or entertaining or a mix of both, and inspiring. Another really good one. So thinking about that, it's finding your voice, and it can be a journey, but just go with your heart. I don't know, go with your, start and you build confidence in it.
You do build confidence. What's sort of interesting is one of the things that I always do, I try to help people think about when you talk about your personal brand, right? The personal brand is more the showy part of it, but really it's the work that you do beforehand. So you're trying to get clear about what's important to you, what your values are, what it is you want to put into the world, what you're good at, and things that people will come to you for. If you have that clarity, and you can actually figure that out by just sort of doing a little bit of soul searching and kind of doing like a SWOT analysis, like a very basic SWOT analysis.
Yeah. And for SWOT people that don't, it's the strengths, weaknesses,
opportunities, and threats. You can kind of do a little bit of an analysis on your own, and then also put your LinkedIn profile and your resume into an AI, right? And have it kind of fill out the remainder of your SWOT analysis with your profiles. And then based on that, you can ask it to kind of help you understand how you should position yourself, or like what are the kind of opportunities you should be looking for, and what kind of people or organizations or companies could benefit from what you do, right? Like, so use it as a tool to kind of guide you, because what it's looking at, it's just looking at patterns, right? It's seeing patterns in a way that we're not seeing them. But if you're asking a question, you're giving enough data, it can help you sort of direct how you're now going to sort of pursue opportunities and what you're going to do, and then how you're going to communicate about that. But I definitely feel it's really important to get clear about what it is that you really, really, really love. And I think post-COVID, people have started to really connect with, what is it I really love, and what am I really good at, and what is it I want to really put out there into the world, rather than just doing the thing that they thought they should do because they've always done it, right? And so you have an opportunity to then create a brand, a personal brand that is really communicating what it is you ultimately want to create and that we want to put out there. Because the best version of Liz Ngonzi is the version that's clear about what she's great at, what she wants to do, and what she wants to help people with, right? And so that's, you're always going to get the best version of me when I'm doing that. If I'm just doing the thing that like I think other people want me to do, I'm not going to get the best version of me, right? And so I think that if more of us were able to have that clarity around what we're good at, what we want to put into the world, and then we had opportunity to then go ahead and tell our story, to connect the opportunities to be able to do that, then we'd have a much better world. I know I sound like, Pollyanna, but I do believe that. I really do believe that.
No, that's inspiring. It's something I'm struggling with myself, is because I'm trying to do so much. But really it comes down to, I'm trying to empower other people to learn and educate themselves with AI, language learning, and video, social media, and short form videos. Those are 4 things. That's it's hard, but it's right. All encompassing in my mind, and
but who can help you cut through that?
ChatGPT.
Yeah. Because let me give you an example. Like, so for me, I'm a multi-hyphenate person, right? I teach, I have an institute, I do all these different things, I speak, and so a lot of people are like, wow, you do a lot of different things. But then I was able to get clear using ChatGPT that really what it is I just help others tell their story, right? And the tools and the strategies are just facilitating that. But ultimately, I'm facilitating storytelling. And the story is, again, it could be the way that you develop your personal brand. It could be, a story is an event, right? We're going to be talking about an event later. A story can also be an organization, right? What an organization is all about, a particular project, a particular company's product, right? So your story manifests in lots of different ways, right? And having clarity around that, being able to use the tools to help you, can help you. So I guess I say all to say to you that that's really fundamentally who I am as a storyteller, and helping people to tell their story really is to be able, people and organizations, to tell their stories using these tools. And so for you may be kind of feel like, oh my gosh, it's all over the place, but there's like a through line that these tools can help you to see. And then you'll be able to connect, okay, that's ultimately what I'm about, and that's what I'm doing, right? And I think you're right about educating, right? But you're catalyzing, because you're not just like telling people something, you're giving them the tools to be able to do something, right? And I think that's important.
Definitely inspiring stuff, Liz. I want to make sure that first, before we talk about Imagine AI Live, is there anything, you're on a roll, Liz, anything else, any words of wisdom you would have for our listeners that are, want to learn about AI, want to tell their story better?
I want to share with you my favorite AI platform, and that's Boodle. Boodle is basically like, if you've ever heard of like the Swiss Army knife, right? That has everything that you need to, to survive with. Boodle is basically the Swiss Army knife of AIs. It's got something like, 900 bots that you can have access to in this platform. It's very user-friendly, very easy to use. I was actually one of the beta testers, so I've been using it since last October. What I love about it is that I can access ChatGPT, I can access Perplexity, I can access Claude, and like the ones that are Llama, the ones that people are more familiar with, but it also has specialized bots. So one of my favorite ones is the Chief Marketing Officer one, right? So literally I'll tee that up and I'll say, okay, I'm trying to work on this particular blog post, or I'm trying to do this thing. And it can literally guide me in kind of refining my content with that Chief Marketing Officer sort of lens. Or maybe if I'm trying to negotiate something, I'll kind of share some content related to whatever the deal is. And I'll say, can you, for that particular negotiation, negotiator bot, and I'll say, can you help me come up with some points that I want to integrate into my response or into my ask? So it can do that, which is really, really cool. And then what happens is I can literally communicate with multiple bots in one particular thread. So let's say if I'm working like on an article, I may want to start with Perplexity because I want to pull in external data from the internet. And then I can switch to the chief marketing officer bot to kind of create the article based on the content that I've come up with, or to refine it for me. And then I can then use it to then create like a cover image if I want. I can then switch to that bot. So that's really, really, really awesome that you can have all these different tools. And I mean, even like for people who are working maybe on grant proposals, they have a grant proposal bot. There's a coaching bot. If you want to work on like your wedding planning, there's a wedding planning bot. So I think it's a really great accessible platform for people to be able to use, because I think that, I used to be the person where I'd have Claude open, I'd have ChatGPT open, I'd have, Google. And so I'd have all of them open up, and I'm like going in between because I couldn't get the answer from one and have to go through. But now I have all of them in one place that it can kind of go to if I need to switch a perspective on whatever it is I need help with. And I just love that. So that's something I would highly encourage people to check out. And then it's great for teams. So like I've got my team on there with me. So if let's say we're trying to like work on, in the past, we would work like maybe on a document, like a Google Doc, to be able to edit together on something. But now we can work within Boodle so that like we're all creating different pieces of whatever we need the output to look like. And so that saves us a ton of time, and it keeps everything in one thread. So that means there are no mistakes or fewer mistakes than in the past. So that's really like my go-to. Like I love this platform.
That's so cool. And how much is it?
So the base price I think is $14.99, and then it's like $24.99 and then $34.99. And it really what you're paying for is increased number of credits to be able to
the more you use it, basically.
The more you use it, right? So like we're at the highest because we're like super users. So we're at the 400,000 level just because we're generating that much out of it. But I think is a starting point. But think about like this. Think about how much you pay for ChatGPT if you get the paid version, right? And then you're able to get all of these different tools in one platform, right? For $14.99 a month.
Yeah, definitely. That's so cool. Yeah, you've convinced me. I got to get on that.
And it's easy to use, and they always have trainings. The other thing is they always have trainings going on, and they're constantly writing blog posts. That makes it so much easier for you to understand how to use this. Because I remember like when I was figuring out how to use ChatGPT and all these other platforms, there wasn't really anything out there I just kind of figured it out, right? Save for some like really amazing person on YouTube who would have created something for me to kind of access. I was sort of on my own, but whereas with this, they have like maybe 3 trainings a week. So you literally can learn how to use this. If you're uncomfortable just kind of jumping in, they make it so much easier for you to be able to do so.
That's awesome. All right, Boodle, got to check it out. Boodle AI, right?
Yes, I would say that you just got to do it. This is not a time to be afraid. This is a time to be bold. It's a time to get involved and learn these tools, even if it's just trying, everyone who has a Google, right? Everyone who has Google has access to Google Gemini, right? So you can access these tools without even having to sign up, right? And just put your toe in and just try it out. Do something as simple as like responding to an email, right? Something that you can kind of like relate to that's not too scary. Obviously make it anonymous. So don't share like, someone's email address or whatever with these platforms. And then just really take the time to find the sources like this platform that you've created. Find the sources that are creating content to help really demystify all of this, or taking courses and the like, because this isn't going away, and this is the starting point. And in fact, I believe this is the most accessible it's going to be, meaning that a lot of these platforms are still relatively free, relatively inexpensive, but at some point the costs are going to escalate. The barriers to entry are going to be, I think, greater. So now is the time for you really to kind of try them out and figure out like which ones work for you, which ones don't. I've been a beta tester for so many different things, and many of them didn't work out for me. But then I found the things I really, really like, and they work for me. But the point is just try them out.
You'll see that it's a lot easier than you think too. You don't have to be an engineer or like AI theorist or something. Like it talks to you in natural language. Your response to just tell it your problems, tell it what you want to do, and you'll just be shocked at how helpful it is.
Right. I love it. Like, I literally will be like, you're lying. Or like, I'll be like, no, that doesn't sound like it's a conversation. In fact, it's a conversation I'm having with my AI assistant, right? That's really
with an artificial intelligence.
Right. It's literally the same way I would ask someone to help me with something is how I'm communicating with this. And so I love the fact that it is natural language that you can use to communicate, which is very different from like when I was learning Fortran and all these languages when, as an undergrad, right? It was like, gosh, you got to really learn this. But this is so much easier and it will save you so much time. And also, I think one part I want to talk about is the innovation part of this, right? Yeah, we're talking about the tools in terms of helping you to become much more productive and to be much more effective around your communication and the like. But in terms of even innovating the product or the service that you offer, I really feel that that's really where we're getting into, right? We're at a point where people have been kind of working with this more publicly for the last year or so. And now we have an opportunity to look at, okay, how do we integrate it? And I'm going to give you an example of an organization that I may have mentioned to you, Chris, before. It's based out of Uganda and it's called Barefoot Law. Very basic legal aid organization. Legal aid everywhere, right? So providing free legal services to people who don't have the means to pay for it. But this young man who started this organization 10 years ago, he was like, he started a Facebook page just for people to ask him questions about whatever legal challenges they had. It's now morphed into an organization that is going to be scaling across the British Commonwealth, so 50 countries. And what he's been able to do is take what was just a basic service where I can, a lawyer can just give you legal advice, to now when anyone sends an inquiry in, right, it can be via text, it can be through social media, or whatever it may be, the AI is the first line of defense or the first one to kind of respond, right, or to be able to kind of get the inquiry. And then that then it kind of drafts a response to the person that's then kicked to the lawyer. And then the lawyer is able to validate the answer or edit it or whatever. And then they send it back to the person first of all, in the language that the person's writing or the English level that they're writing. And so if you're writing 4th grade English, it knows that that's how it needs to respond to you, right? What's so incredible about this, I had a visit with them when I was in Uganda last July. What's so incredible is in the past, they have 10 attorneys. In the past, 10 attorneys could maybe do 10 cases a day. Now with this, they're able to do at least 100 cases a day. Think about that. It's incredible. So they've taken what, is a basic service. Now they've been able to not only serve more people, but it caught the attention of the Commonwealth that now that they're scaling it across 50 different countries, they're already in 3 now. Right. And so think about that, how incredible that is for you to be able to take, we're talking about the most basic AI to be able to kind of serve more people in an effective way. And I love that. I think that's really what we're looking at, right? Liz, how can you take advantage of it in that way to kind of scale your impact beyond communications?
Have a greater positive impact with AI, and the amount of industries that this touches, it's every industry. It's
everything. It's not even, and I think people have to stop thinking about it as like this thing that's out here, but it's something that's part of everything that we're doing, right? It's integrated in everything. And by the way, as consumers, we've been interacting with AI for at least 5 years, right? If not longer. We've already been, if you're on Amazon or Netflix or any of these things, you've already been interacting with them. You're using Siri, all these platforms. So we have been interacting with them as consumers. It's really over the last year or so that we've been able to interact with them at scale as producers. And then I think now moving forward as innovators.
Transitioning into Imagine AI Impact New York.
Yes.
6 weeks ago, we had the kickoff conference, first of its kind, and we had brought in people from all different industries. Lots of people that didn't know anything about AI wanted to get up to speed with AI. 600 people came. It was a great success. And instead of waiting a year to have our next event, it's going to be in 2 months from now, July 12th in New York. And more details are going to be out later, but it's going to be a day session, a day impact session instead of 2 days like we had last time in New York this time. And we're really excited. Liz, maybe you can tell the story of what you know about the event.
Okay. In fact, Steve and I had a follow-up call after Imagine AI Live about a month ago. And I was like, I want to get involved more. I want to do more with you guys. And he's like, well, we're thinking about taking the show on the road. And I was like, well, New York sounds like a good place, right? And so he was like, yeah, I think we should do that. And he goes, we were thinking about Boston and a bunch of other places. He's like, New York sounds good. And then he was like, would you be interested in kind of helping us figure that out? And I said, yeah, sure. Let me look up some venues. He wanted to keep it more at the university, sort of in the university spaces. And I'm associated with a couple of them. And the one that really kind of, when it came back to him, I said, I think Cornell Tech would be a really great place to do this. One, because I'm a Cornell alum, but more importantly, Cornell Tech is really aligned with what Imagine AI Live is Imagine AI Impact New York is trying to do, is really creating access through technology, right? And so I really felt it would be wonderful to be able to do it there. So that's what's happening.
Yeah, beautiful venue.
It's a beautiful venue, Roosevelt Island, right?
Roosevelt Island, that's right.
5-minute tram ride from Manhattan Island, or you can take the subway there, you can take an Uber. It's beautiful. It's in a sort of a park-like setting. It's a relatively new campus, sort of state-of-the-art facilities. And I think what's so exciting about it is it's a space that easy for people to access, but also it was intentionally developed for people to be able to use technology to make the world better, right? So what better place to be learning and to be part of. And so I'm excited about sort of being able to be there and be part of this in that way. And I'm going to an event on Friday at Cornell Tech to sort of see some of the projects that the students have been working on. So Cornell Tech is a graduate level program. So the students in there are actually working on tech innovations that are going to market. In fact, 100 plus companies have been incubated out of Cornell Tech. And over since 2017, I believe. So I'm going to see some of the companies that are coming out of Cornell Tech. And I'd love to see if maybe we can have like some students and also some of the graduates to come and display what they're working on. Because I went to an event last year where I saw some incredible companies that have already been at revenue point doing really incredible work around healthcare, health access using AI. So I think it would be wonderful to be able to integrate that into content that's going to be shared at the event for people to even learn about some of these businesses. And so I definitely feel that people are going to love it. It's one day, so it's really, you kind of in and out.
But you're going to learn so much and get up to current speed again with where AI is.
Where AI is like 6 weeks later. I mean, actually, it would be 12 weeks later, right? I mean, 12, think about, that's 3 months. Think about everything that happens in that. So I think that's what's exciting about that. The other thing about it is, for me, what I was really excited about when I first learned about Imagine AI Live was the fact that this was a conference that was geared towards people. You didn't necessarily have to be technical, but technical people talking to technical people. It was about people who have technical knowledge and have access to technical tools to help your business, to help your organization, to help you to amplify your impact, right? And so I really love that. I think that's what's really unique about what Imagine AI as a brand is all about, is making all of this accessible to everybody, right? Who it wants to learn and is really trying to figure out how to use this to do better in whatever it is that they're working on. So it's the content that you're going to get, but also the fact that you have this incredible community that you can be part of. There's also that online community that people can now join. And I think, like, for me, coming out of Imagine AI, I can't even tell you how many meetings I've had and even kind of partnerships have evolved from being part of this. And so I think that's also something that's really important for people to note, is that you're going to get great content, but you're also going to get access to an incredible community that you can be part of, and then opportunities that can arise for your business, for you, for your organization coming out of it.
Liz, I couldn't have said it better myself. It was great. We've got a wide, big tent here. Everyone can benefit from AI. There's always more to learn. And we are trying to prioritize that community and that network, as well as getting the top talent and top companies coming to share their knowledge with people.
And I'll be there. I'll be presenting. Well, so I'm looking forward to doing that.
I'm hoping I'm going to be there. It's halfway around the world. I'm South Korea, New York connection. We're going to be doing meetups too, like AI fan club in different cities around the world. At minimum, I'm going to be organizing the one in Seoul for that weekend. So
I think that's great, because the beauty of the world that we're living in right now is that you don't have to necessarily be physically somewhere to be able to benefit from an experience. And I think that's really, really wonderful. I love hybrid events. I love the ability for you to take what otherwise would have been in four walls and make it accessible, digitally, for people to kind of engage with the online content and then be able to do something like a watch party, be able to engage in person as well with whatever local community they're with.
I mean, the biggest it's finding people that appreciate AI's potential or are AI curious and like making that community of people that you can talk with about this stuff. I mean, it's still a minority of people that are taking it seriously and are seeing the big wave that's coming. And most people, it's a harder thing to have a conversation with.
It's here. It's not coming.
Yeah, it's here.
It's definitely here. We're it's on top of us.
Yeah. And it's on to you if you want to
keep up.
Yeah, what kind of surf you're going to build to ride the wave.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, Liz, this was an amazing conversation. Thanks so much for coming on. It was great to talk with you again here, and hope to see you in New York, if not virtually there.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And thank you for all that you're doing. It's really wonderful to be part of this community. And thank you for inviting me, enabling me to connect with your audience. And, and everybody, just please connect with me. I want to hear what you're doing. I'm happy to amplify your work, and I'm happy to connect with other folks and see how we can work together on all this, because we're all learning, right? These are early days. Even though, Chris, we've been at this for, now a year and a half or whatever at this point, it's still early days, right? And so there's so many opportunities to figure out how you can work with other people, connect with other people, how you can learn how all this works. I'm always trying to learn new things. I'm always teaching how to do all this, but this is such an incredibly exciting time. There's so much, it's like magical, right? I really, really believe that. And so we have to embrace this and not be afraid of it, right? In fact, you know what I'm most scared of? I got to be honest with you, my emails. And I'll tell you why. Because there's so many spoofed emails out there. There's so many things out there, right? So that's what I'm afraid of. I'm not afraid of AI. I'm afraid of my emails. So the point being that, yes, there are negatives to this. There are people who are going to, but with every technology, with every new development, you're always going to have people exploit it for negative and are going to do bad with it. But then there's so much great that we can do with it. It outweighs it. It far outweighs it. I mean, I got to so I feel like I gotta just embrace it and figure out, especially for people who are trying to figure out their next thing or how to remain relevant. Okay, if what you're currently doing right now is going to be replaced by AI, then don't just kind of bury your head in the sand. Figure out how to make yourself relevant in this, right? How do you become the person who teaches people how to use AI in the context of what you do? Or how can you learn AI so that then you could do something different, right? Taking what you've already learned and then apply it in a different way. I mean, this is really a time where you can reinvent yourself in a really incredible way. So I don't want people to be afraid. I want you to know that this is something that we're all learning how to use, and we're all going to be better for having used it.
Spot on, Liz. Thanks so much for joining the Imagine AI podcast, and stay tuned for our next one. Are you a podcaster? Do you appreciate the power of AI to make your life more productive? Well, do I have the tool for you? Podcast AI is a company that streamlines all your post-production needs. It honestly saves me an hour or two of work every episode, and it gives me tons of ideas for marketing and social media posts. Go over to podcastai.com now to see for yourself.